All right, good evening. I would like to call to order this regular meeting of the Encinitas City Council for Wednesday, August 21st, 2024 at 6 p.m. And if the clerk would please call the roll.
Yes, Councilmember Lyons.
Here.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Here.
Councilmember Hinsey is absent. Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Here.
Mayor Kranz.
Here.
Record will show that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Hinsey.
Okay, and if you are able to, please rise and join me for Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Tonight we have a special presentation by Senior Management Analyst Jones Kirk and Deputy Chief Sanchez regarding the Genesis Evacuation Notification System.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Marie Jones Kirk, Senior Management Analyst with the Fire Department, and I'm joined this evening by Deputy Chief Sanchez. We're here to present on San Diego County's emergency notification alerting tools and its new evacuation application that provide enhanced capabilities to streamline emergency information to the public. This project was a 2.5-year process in partnership with fire departments, law enforcement, and the County of San Diego to create a best practice to help save lives through improved evacuations. San Diego officials, fire and law enforcement departments, and emergency managers use a suite of tools to share emergency information with the public to what they should do in advance of or during an emergency. Genesis Alert, publicly known as Alert San Diego, is location-based alerting and requires people to register to receive notifications based on an address location. Wireless emergency alerts, or WIAs, are broadcast from cell towers to any WIA-enabled mobile device in a locally targeted area. And the newest tool, Genesis Protect, is a public-facing website and application that provides geographical application based on zones. I'll provide some additional information on each tool. Give me 1 second, I'm just gonna, okay. Recently upgraded with enhanced capabilities, the Alert San Diego tool requires people to register or opt in at alertsandiego.org. Opting in will tie your cell phone and internet voice over IP or an email to specific locations, such as a home, address, work, or another important location. Those who still have landlines, which there are still a few, were added to the system when the Alert San Diego system rolled out in the early 2000s. When there's an emergency, you'll be alerted with a voicemail, a text message, and an email when there's an emergency or disaster about to happen or is happening. Anyone who requires notifications to be received in accessible formats can indicate that when registering, as well as choosing a multitude of languages. Given the number of wildland fires we've seen in the last few months and weeks, I encourage everyone to register or update their contact information at Alert San Diego or alertsd.org. Wireless emergency alerts, or WEAs, are similar to an Amber Alert. So many of you are familiar with those. It has a unique tone and a message that will pop up on your phone. You don't need to register to receive these notifications. WEAs will reach you through geographical targeting, meaning people need to be in the impacted area or zone to receive the notification as messages are broadcast from cell towers. Given the number of tourists that frequent our communities, WEAs are a very important tool to reach those that are visiting, and is not just intended for those who live or work in the area. These emergency notifications can be sent from local, state, or federal officials, alerting residents about the emergency and with important information such as the emergency's location and what actions residents should take and how they can find more information. An important piece about WEAs is that messages are limited to 90 characters. So it's important for residents to follow up on the alerts turning into local media, city, or sheriff's or law enforcement social media. And our newest tool that I'm very excited about is Genesis Protect. It's a tool for first responder agencies to communicate speedy and relevant emergency information on evacuation areas, shelter locations, road closures, and much more to the public in a timely manner. Residents have two options to access this information, either by downloading the application or accessing Genesis Protect website. People can view a map, see impacted zones, and other relevant emergency information. Residents who download the app will have the same functionality as the website, but can subscribe to specific zones and receive push notifications anytime there's a zone status change. The new system is a valuable tool for those responsible in preparing and sending emergency messages, and for the public to make timely decisions when they receive notifications. Finding your zone. Knowing your zone prior to an emergency or disaster is a key to the safety of you and your loved ones when your area is impacted. San Diego County is separated into zones based on the county code of SDC and a corresponding number for a specific zone. On the Genesis Protect app, you can enter up to 5 addresses, such as a home, work, school, or other important location. When there's been a zone status change, app users will receive this information via push notifications. Chief Sanchez will now explain how fire and law enforcement agencies use alerting, Genesis Protect, and zone statuses during an incident.
Good evening, everyone. Jorge Sanchez here. So Genesis Protect is used on major incidents where evacuations are needed. Fire and law enforcement will work together at the command post to identify the most threatened zones to evacuate. Once the plan is identified, law enforcement communicates that plan to dispatch, who will then change the zone status to those impacted areas. And whoever has Genesis Protect can see that. Once a zone status is changed, a different color will appear on those impacted zones, which will be visible again on Genesis Protect. A status can be changed for several reasons, as shown here. Normal is gray, different colors, advisory, evacuation warnings, evacuation orders, and so on and so forth. When a zone status is changed, residents can see the change and the reason for the change. They can also view the protective actions to take on Genesis Protect. This notification platform will also notify you once your zone is deemed safe for repopulation as well. Lastly, to ensure that you and your family are safe, I encourage you to sign up to receive emergency notifications at alertsandiego.org, download the SD Emergency app, and of course, Genesis Protect. Download Genesis Protect and find your zone. Lastly, when an emergency happens, follow the City of Encinitas and the Sheriff's Department on social media for the most current information. The flyer on this screen is available at the back of Council chambers in both English and in Spanish. Senior Management Analyst Marie and I are available for any questions. Thank you. Okay.
I appreciate the presentation. Thank you very much. I don't see any questions. I will work on it, download the app. Thank you. Okay, moving on to oral communications, please.
Reminder, oral communications is a time for individuals to speak on items that are not listed on the agenda. I will call you three at a time. You do have 3 minutes. Ron Rodriguez, Mark Wilcox, followed by Geraldine Kessler.
Mayor Tony Krantz, council members, my name is Ron Rodriguez. I'm the post commander for Encinitas, San Diego Post 416. This is my second term. I was first elected in 2023, 2024, and then I got reelected in 2024 by 2025. Luckily, I won by 1 vote. I come before you this evening to inform the council what is happening at San Diego Post 416, which is down the street from here. The post was established in 1931, serving veterans of our community. According to the last census here in Encinitas, the population of Encinitas was roughly 62,000 residents. Out of those residents, 3,100 are veterans. That means we have a lot of veterans here in the area. And this afternoon, I stopped by CRC, which is just around the corner from our place, and I asked how many veterans frequently go there, and they said, well, they said they couldn't answer the question because the lady wasn't there, but I will go later on the week and find out what's going on with our veterans here in Encinitas. American Legion Post, we have 4 pillars: Americanism, national security, youth services, and Veterans Affairs. The youth services, we do Boys and Girls State here in the local high schools. We were proud to announce that one of our candidates has been accepted to the Naval Academy for the year 2024. We have the following events at the Legion, and I'd like to share this with you, what they are. Our first event is October the 13th. It's Navy. November the 10th is Marine Corps Veteran Day. November 11th, the Veterans, is where our mayor is Tony Krantz, has been there giving address on what it means. September and October, we're trying to promote events. Once these events are available, I will again return to the city council and update you on what is going on at American Legion Post 416. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you, Ron, and I really appreciate all that you guys do down there. It's one of the oldest organizations in our community and has certainly done a lot for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next is Mark Wilcox, be followed by Geraldine Kessler, and then Rolf Delaware.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor Krantz. My name is Mark Wilcox. I'm a father, grandfather, and recently great-grandfather, and community volunteer. I'm passionate about protecting children from drug use that short-circuits their journey to adulthood faster than any other problem. Those of us who support good public health policies for Encinitas, especially smoke-free and vape-free policies, applauded the City Council's citywide ban on smoking and vaping in public places last year. Unfortunately, the third marijuana storefront opening in Encinitas undermines good public health policies. Smoking and vaping marijuana products are the foremost method of marijuana consumption. The 2023 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, which is the leading federal estimate of trends in marijuana, tobacco, and alcohol use, was newly released. It indicates that over the past 20 years, the number of past month users of marijuana increased by almost 200%, while the number of monthly users of tobacco products decreased by almost 30%. If trends continue, there will soon be more past month users of marijuana than tobacco. As the nation, we have worked to overcome the harms of big tobacco. However, the next public health crisis is likely the rise of marijuana use with its profit-driven industry and marketing. A former White House drug policy advisor, Dr. Kevin Sabet, stated, quote, "This latest data makes clear what we've said all along. The normalization and industrialization of today's high-potency THC drug products is a self-made public health crisis for this country," end quote. As a city council that has clearly embraced the role as protector of public health and safety, perhaps it is time to revisit the ballot initiative that barely passed in our city after being heavily financed by pot profiteers, and push back on the basis of good public health. Thank you for your help and consideration on this important issue.
Thank you.
I want to speak about the Melba project that is slated to remove 173 trees, 30 smaller trees and native shrubs, and demo 3 beautiful historical homes built in 1938. The neighborhood is currently waiting for word on the next steps of this project. The public records requests take hours to sift through, literally impossible to keep up with. But I'm sure the Melba project will be rubber stamped like many of these other density bonus projects I've watched go through these last 3 years. The community has no idea what is going on, so we just sit and wait, and it's very unnerving. The owner continues to torment the neighborhood, asking for meetings that are a waste of time for the residents. We are losing a longtime senior citizen community member who lived adjacent to the project. This will be the second senior citizen who's chosen to leave the area for many reasons, but one of the main ones is this Melba project going in the neighborhood. She lived directly under the hill of this housing project at the bottom of the hill, and we know that the hydrology report was flawed and did not take into consideration the weakness of the hill and the soil that the ground's made of. So for the last 3 years, this 87-year young resident who had resided for 48 years has been dealing with this issue. This has all been on your watch. You have no assistance whatsoever for the long-time senior citizens community to age in place that I can see. No services that support the elderly in the area that is easily accessible. But I do see a lot of blame going to Sacramento on the city's part with its housing demands for their small beach community. But no one on the council has made it a priority to assist seniors to age in place. But perhaps that is what you wanted, to have the seniors move from the area. Out with the old, in with the new. She would have had to deal with this alone if it wasn't for the support for a MASH group. As you know, for the last 3 years, the developer and owner only served to stress out the neighborhood, stating that he would make the project worse if we don't support it. You get the picture. So instead of being able to enjoy her grandkids and senior fun activities, she's been stressed out about the housing project like many other seniors in the area. Again, all on your watch. I was also told of a recent debacle of the other adjacent neighborhood with a developer and owner. After they spent thousands of dollars trying to get an agreement with a private road, the owner said, forget it, unless the entire community signs off on this project, not objecting to anything. Again, long-time tax-paying senior population, probably on a fixed income, didn't deserve this. Borders on elder abuse. Oh, by the way, once that grading starts on the project, our Melba Heritage Grove will be toast. And I enjoyed the mayoral debate. It was nice to see that, the respect for both of you. It's refreshing.
Next speaker is Raul Villamar, followed by Mark Maville, and then Bernard Lovelace.
My name is Raul Villamar, and you folks know me. I own the Encinitas barbershop. 3 weeks ago, in front of my barbershop, we had a fight. There was blood all on place. They broke all my pots. They're about $300 a piece. I went to Beer Garden and I gave them my card. They said they're going to give it to the lawyers. Now, on Friday night, there was another fight. 4 boys chased these other boys into the Thrifty Threads. Blood all over the place, and there's fights all over the place, and broken racks and everything. The clothes are all full of blood. The sheriffs came down, took a report. I was told by the owner that she gave him a video. There's a video of it, 4 cameras. There's also, we ended up talking and stuff like that. There's a whole group now that's getting involved. We're going to show videos online. If you likes to see them online, we can show them online. I walked into the City Hall today, and in front it says bleeding control kit. They have a kit. He goes, I was wondering if we can have one of those for downtown now. You know, everybody's fighting, everybody's doing. It's called Fight Night at the small mall. That's our little mall that we have there now. And he goes, every morning, every day, I talk to somebody, and every day that they come in, they sit there for all day long. If you guys would like to come down and just sit there and listen to all the people that are disgusted with coming down to downtown Encinitas. The only time they come down here is on the weekdays. And it's because that's the only time that they can find parking in our lot. We have the parking lot. It's full of people from the dispensaries going over. They're getting a beer garden. They're going around the corners and stuff like that on it. But I'm just came here tonight just to let you folks know that you guys are on cameras now, and it's downtown Carlsbad. Encinitas. I am going to put some cameras up too, so I can show you next time I come down if there's any problems. And but if I can get one of those kits to put down there at my barbershop, you know, for the bleeding control, just to make sure that somebody doesn't bleed all over the place. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Mark Maville?
Mark Maville. Feel like I'm repeating myself here. I'm just going to try to make sure this stuff is going to stick with the council here. I'm going to go over a plethora of things here. Once again, the homeless mandates that I didn't get to mention have been strengthened. Superior Court decision apparently. The cities do not owe anybody that's homeless housing. So the encampments can be swept with no problem, and that is a major issue. Raul is right. There is fighting that goes on. It involves some of that. The curfew enforcement that the sheriff have been displaying has been very strong in the parks, and I've recommended cameras put in the parks or put back in the parks. No eyes there. You got the cameras. Then you know what's going on. You don't want to walk around blindly and just start pointing fingers at people. So the outside dining situation, I don't know. It's got to be a revote or whatever we got to do. Promises were made to that family that was here that that situation would be taken care of, contained, and removed. And some of the First Street Bar pulled that trailer, that whatever it was out there. You get E. coli in that thing. But I believe Better Buzz pulled theirs, and there is no reason not to pull it. Extending it to 26, that's basically lying to the general public that you would take care of it. And there is no reason to have it out there. There's the handicapped access is limited. It's, first of all, an eyesore. Now you're going to put brick walls around it to protect all that. That's not necessary. That's an expense that doesn't have to happen. Just do what you said you were going to do. Don't write checks you can't cash, and make sure this is handled. It's just got to be done. It affects the buses. It affects the kids that are riding down the street. There's your bike safety issue right there. It's got to be handled, whether it's now or when the change of guard takes place. That's just the way it is. The cannabis huts, I call them cannabis huts, have to be removed. A revote on that. The only people that voted on it were the people who want to get high legally and have no consequence. You walk towards your car, you've got your key, you put it in the door, and the sheriff can take them in for a DUI. So It's become a situation where there's fentanyl involved. I knew that was going to happen. I'm 17 years sober. I don't care that the cameras are rolling, but I know and can sense when something like that is happening. And the THC high-level gummy bears that are getting to the kids in the school, that's also an issue, and they're coming from those cannabis huts. So you got to check, kind of open your eyes and see what's going on. I know it's an uphill battle. I talked to Bruce a little bit about it to get rid of them, but they got to go.
Thank you.
Sago and Peabody's got to be disciplined.
Thank you.
And the last thing is very
You're
disappointing
done.
year from you guys. You did nothing
You're done.
except for that bike. round.
Thank you.
And the last speaker is Bernard Lovelace.
Okay, thank you all for coming out and.
We have one more.
Oh, one more.
Hello. I didn't realize this wouldn't be back and forth, so it'll be short. I didn't know if Encinitas had considered rent control for mobile home parks. I know the state has statewide rent control, and I guess I kind of thought it would apply, but I did a little research, and I guess it doesn't. It applies to mobile home parks that operate in multiple jurisdictions, I guess. So if you have some owned in a single jurisdiction, they don't, they're not covered. So some other jurisdictions have taken care of this already. Nashville City, Imperial Beach, Chula Vista, Escondido, and on and on and on. So I didn't know if you guys had considered that, so I wanted to bring it to your attention. And I have some point of contact, so I can send some emails and stuff, but just wanted to more or less ask. But yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes oral communications.
Okay, thank you all for coming out and sharing your thoughts. And with that, we'll move on to item 6, which there will be no report because we didn't hold a closed session. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the posted agenda. And then moving to the consent calendar, no items have been removed by the public.
Okay, I'd like to remove item 8E as an echo. So that leaves items 8A, B, C, D, and F.
I'll move approval of the remaining items.
I'll second it.
Motion carries unanimously with Hensy absent, so that takes us to item 8E.
I have a quick question regarding council communication. We've had oral communication from a gentleman, Philip Kochmore, who has questions and issues with height measurements. And it is an issue that apparently is impacted by Prop A and or requires a variance for the ridge line west of Interstate 5. And I'm wondering if there's a desire on the council to have the Planning Commission consider that ordinance and whether there's some modifications that might be made to that. And if we could add that to the work plan. Maybe Carrie has some comments on whether that would be something that the Planning Commission's work plan could consider.
Mayor Crayons, yeah, I think that's something certainly that we could put under the work plan if council desires. That is a rule that applies to properties sloped more than 10%. It generally, is applying in places like, in Cardiff and various other places as essentially a way to ensure that downhill views would remain and houses wouldn't be built up into that. And there are places in various parts of town where those type of slope conditions where there's no view issues present. And prior to Prop A going into place, there was a process through an administrative design review permit where folks could asked to exceed the height limit if they could demonstrate that there are no view issues present. So that did go away, and so that's kind of, this property is one of those properties that's caught in that space where the rule applies to them, but there's no longer the relief that had been there, and even pointed out a couple of his neighbors that had gone through that process successfully.
Well, this is the second case that I've seen that it didn't impact views, and it seemed like a lot of bureaucratic overhead in order to address it. Councilmember Ehlers?
And I just want to clarify, Carrie, as soon as I get him. Carrie, that wasn't Prop A that changed that. My recollection is the going from 22 to 26 feet for the eve and 22 to 26 feet for the peak. That was changed, I think it was council initiated that did that, and I think Jerome Stocks was mayor at the time, as I recall. So, and it preceded, I think, as you said, I didn't want people to think there was Prop A that changed that part of the code. Yeah, and actually, I'm going to be meeting with Philip later in the week. So I know we're not talking about it here. We're talking about whether we agendize it. I don't have any problem agendizing it or asking the Planning Commission to add that to their work plan to look at it. I think when I was on Planning Commission the first time back in 2002 to 2004, we looked at this law in great detail because the determination of what is a sloped lot versus what is not a sloped lot was a bit more ambiguous, and we put in place the 3 parallel lines perpendicular to the slope, and it got, I think, better. It's a difficult set of code to interpret. Have at it. Good luck. But I think it's workable the way it is now.
If I could have been pointed out by Assistant Director Colamucci that it's actually one of the parts that's on page 16 of the staff report in the zoning code update section. Height limits, including average lot slope, is included in there. So we could, just as a part of looking at that section, we could be sure that that's an included part of that discussion since it's already listed in there.
Yeah. I mean, I, for one, don't have a big desire to change it. I think this, in his case, I have a question. In the example case we're talking about, are they talking about actually a sloped lot, or are we actually talking about a bluff top lot or sorry, I should say a sloped lot where it's the upper ridge line, I think, that he has to stay 16 feet or under, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in this particular case, the house sits, like, the street is the uphill lot,
Yeah.
but then the house, it slopes slightly up to where the house sits, and then it slopes away on the opposite side back more than 10%, so the overall lot slope is over 10%.
Yep, okay.
I think the issue for me was that, and I'm going by his email, right? So I didn't get a briefing on the specifics of this case, but I do know that we processed a variance for a similar situation down on Eolis, and I just, in this particular case, the way it's described, the structure on either side of this area that he's trying to repair is actually higher than what he's trying to do. So I'm interested in providing the Development Services Department with some ministerial power to allow people to make what appear to be pretty logical and inconsequential improvements to their home. So whether it, can start with the Planning Commission considering that part of the municipal code to see if there's a way that we can create some room for you to make that decision. I don't think there's anybody that's going to beef about what he's proposing to do, but it's not as, he's looking for it kind of in a hurry, and this isn't necessarily going to provide that for him. Maybe Bruce is going to work out a deal that we can get it sooner, I don't know, but I just sympathize with his issue here and thought as long as we were going to be talking about the work plan, we might be able to add it. Councilmember Ehlers, did you want to speak again? Or?
No, I just figured you really wanted to not. I figured you didn't want to make Steve wait in the audience and not actually get to talk.
Commissioner Chairman Dalton is, yes,
I'm familiar with the project. We've actually had two, as I recall, and it has to do with the crown of the street, creating a kind of artificially low height limit for those lots. We do have it in our long-term plan at the moment, and I maybe ask for a direction whether you think that should be moved up into as time permits or more pressing than that.
I'd like to see that. Councilmember Lyons?
Yes, I appreciate that the clarity you've brought to this, Mayor, and have been articulated quite well what a good step forward would be. So I think that we need to be able to provide some relief for properties that where there's not a view shed that's of concern, that the intent of this requirement would be is irrelevant to the property. So I would propose to move that we not only create, because you've already got a work item associated with this, but really emphasize the importance of developing a solution which helps to provide relief for scenarios where there's not an impact to the view shed. And I would also recommend that it be elevated to a higher priority than currently is with the long term.
I would second that. So we're ready to vote.
Motion carries unanimously with Hinsey absent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 10A, which is council direction for the aesthetics of the protective outdoor dining barriers, specifically regarding a uniform paint color for the new concrete barriers. And Evan Jednak.
Good evening, City Council and members of the public. I'm Evan Jednak, Senior Planner, here to present item 10A on the outdoor dining barrier paint color. On June 12th, the City Council directed staff to replace the existing plastic outdoor dining barriers with concrete barriers. City Council also requested that staff return with neutral paint color options to select a uniform barrier color. Operators will also have the option of an art installation instead of the uniform color that is selected. Staff researched various paint types and brands that would be appropriate for the concrete barriers. It was determined in accordance with the public works staff that dry-lock concrete floor paint would be appropriate and is readily available. Dry-lock concrete floor paint is available in the neutral tones shown on this slide: cream, sandstone, platinum, bamboo beige, coffee beige, and caramel. And with that, staff recommends that the City Council select a uniform outdoor dining barrier paint color from these options. And this concludes the presentation.
I thought staff might make a recommendation.
Sandstone.
Do we have any public speakers?
We did have Mark Maville, but I think he left.
Okay.
And other speakers.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I'll give my vote. I think it's sandstone. But I did want to just, actually maybe a side issue to this is the fact that some proprietors might want to paint murals on the barriers, right? And in our staff meeting, we talked about the fact that the paint they'd all be painted, and it's still possible to do murals on top of that. But I think what I wonder is we don't really have any guidelines. If someone comes forward and says they're going to paint one of these barriers, and maybe this is appropriate here, is to ask for staff to consider maybe we have some simple guidelines, because I have a feeling we will get asked, and it feels like it'd be helpful to have some guidance, whether we support that, and if we do, what's in bounds, out of bounds. And with that, I think I have, oh, and one other comment, I'm sorry. We did get a public comment that talked about just the barriers in general and the outdoor dining, and it was not related to the color. So sorry to digress again, but it was related to access for peoples with disabilities to be able to get through any area that had outdoor dining. And I thought maybe you could take a minute to describe how we do enforce that and what's in place to make sure there's thoroughfare.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell, the code enforcement, always responds to any complaints that we receive. And additionally, as time allows, we will proactively walk through there every once in a while and just work with operators to ensure that any infringements on the 5-foot required pathway that we have for ADA are removed. Usually in real time. A consistent issue there is generally the issue that we have is a patron will move a chair or put a table together in a way that encroaches into that space. And as we try to work with the vendors, the restaurant owners, to be sure that they have their servers or their manager work with their customers to ensure that doesn't happen. And occasionally we see an A-frame sign or something else that's associated with the dining space, not placed in the right spot, and we have folks move those. And that's something we'll continue to do over time. And I think something we're looking at as we consider a ordinance for this would be some level of consequence for folks who places that are continually out of compliance, because we do find there are certain places that have more issues than others.
Thank you very much. And regarding murals?
Yeah, the only criteria that we would apply, that we've thought of applying, is we're not going to allow any logos or signage. Really gearing more towards motifs as opposed to paintings or things like that. But I think we'd be glad to come up with a couple of some guidance based on other things that we see. I do think this kind of different than some other art issues. This is a space where it's proprietary to the city, so I think we can provide some limitations on what folks can and cannot do.
Great, thank you much.
Councilmember Lyons.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the guidelines are good. I think it's kind of a basic structure of what would be okay. It's public right of way, so it's a little bit different than something on a private side of a building. But yet, I don't think we need to have a incredibly onerous process. So guidelines are good. When we install the barriers, I made this point in our staff briefing, and I just want to make sure it's clear. I think our objective is that when we install the barriers, all the barriers will be painted the same color, the color we select tonight. And then that way we've got some good visual continuity along where the barriers are. Then if a business wants to add a mural, they can add it to it. And I found it a little confusing in the staff report where it sounded like if they were going to do a mural, then we wouldn't paint the barrier. But I think that really wasn't the intent, that the intent was we would paint all the barriers. And then that leaves that decision kind of more in our court, that we'll have the visual continuity. And then if the business owners wanted to add a mural, that could be done. Evan, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So they would all be painted the uniform color to start, and then if the owners wanted to paint the mural, they would have that choice.
Let me understand the process a little bit more too, because I think this is the last time we look at this before these barriers go in. What we'll do is we'll notify the business owners. We will coordinate with them on the installation of the barriers so that they're aware, and we will remove the orange barriers, and then after that we will install the K-rail concrete barriers, and then once installed we'll paint them. Is that the right process? Is that how that's going to work?
Traffic engineering is currently preparing a replacement plan, so that's the first step. Once that plan is set, which is estimated to be about mid-September, they'll come to City Council for design immunity on that plan, and then Public Works would move forth in accordance with that plan. So there's a lot of stuff to be, designed and figured out in that plan.
And along with the process of the construction plan, there'll be coordination with each individual business owner?
Yeah. And we have reached out to each business in regards to the right-of-way usage fee. So we do have up-to-date contact now, which we hadn't before for each business. So yes, we will be working out or reaching out and working with each business as that replacement occurs.
And Councilmember Lyons, if I could add, we would engage the contractor that we engage to place the barriers, to paint them before they are placed, to facilitate painting and have less disruption in the right-of-way and less time.
Okay. I guess the other thing I want to say is I just want to kind of just make this statement to my colleagues. I'm okay that decisions like this don't have to come to us. And the reason I say that is because we have an Arts Commission that we usually ask for recommendations, and I'm totally fine with the Arts Commission making recommendations on things like this. But that's fine. It's here, and given that, I've reached out to my friends who paint murals to ask them what they think as far as a color, since they're like more. They're hands-on, they're more informed than I am. And the input is, well, just the lighter of the colors as it seems appropriate. I do want to point out that whatever this monitor is registering for these colors may not exactly be the true color, because monitors can shift color. So I just want to point that out a little bit, and also printouts can shift color. But given that, I'm in favor of the sandstone. It's not the lightest, but it's the next to the lightest, and I think it goes a little more neutral, which is more appropriate and won't be as hard to maintain as far as dirt, accumulation of dirt. So that's where I'm leaning as far as the sandstone. And if we can combine a level of enforcement when we install these that verifies with the establishments that they're conforming with the requirements for the rest of the outdoor dining, I think it would be an appropriate time to do that, to make sure that we have the ADA accessible areas, because I'm not sure, it just gives us an important point where we're kind of touching that property, and we're going to be there, and I would like to include enforcement review for each of them at that time. If they're not in compliance, get them in compliance.
If I may, Councilmember Lyons, that's part of, I believe we presented that to the council in the past, that when our intention is that we're gonna do this, and we're gonna go through a compliance check with every operation to make sure that they're operating properly, that they are following all our conditions, they're keeping it clean, and then you'll see us, as best we can, doing regular checkups on them, being that it's, being a little more proactive than we normally are in a code enforcement stance, just because it is in the right of way, it is our proprietary space, so we're not necessarily going to wait for complaints and try to work proactively to be sure people are in compliance.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Yeah, let's see. The colors all look great to me. I'm the last one that should be picking colors up here. My only input is not orange. Just make it not orange. That's all I ask. I've been looking at pictures on Google Earth, looking street view down the street, and the orange pops out at you. And I think every one of these colors will be much better. My question goes more to the mural option, and that city property that we're placing the K-rail there. I like the fact we're painting them ahead of time. I also like the fact that it's continuous K-rail. I don't support the K-rail, but if it's going to be K-rail, it should be continuous. I think that'll be a better look than the discontinuous look currently of the orange, or some of the examples we saw in previous reports where we saw a K-rail planter, K-rail planter. I thought that didn't look that good. My concern comes down to the maintenance of the barrier. If you look at any barrier next to a road, a K-rail barrier next to a road, invariably cars hit them and they ride up on them and they leave nice black marks on there. Now, unless the mural is tire tracks going up and down, that it would, the future tire tracks blend in with, I don't know that I see the advantage of putting murals on these. They're low. They're not exactly at presentation height for cars driving by. And I think there's some advantage to having the consistent color all the way down. The other thing I worry about is the maintenance of the mural. As it gets dirty, as it gets marked, hit, whatever, degrades over time. It's on city property. Who maintains it? Who's responsible? At what point can the city step in and say, that mural is degraded to a point, maybe we should just paint it over? And then we got to go through the paint process again. So I guess I'd like you to, when you do the encroachment permit, and I assume the painting of the mural, it will be a section within the encroachment permit, look at maintenance. Look at how we're going to maintain the mural, or how they're going to maintain the mural, or at what point can we take it back over and paint it over. So that took me to the maintenance process in general and the encroachment permit. Someday, it looks pretty good right now. We're not going to have to repave, hopefully, for another 10 or 20 years. But I would hope that the encroachment permit has some clause in there that says, at the point at which the city reaches a decision to repave 101, we're going to have some time to have everything taken down, be able to repave, and then have time to put it back up. I would love to see the encroachment permits we're issuing for this under our new ordinance takes that into account. Thank you.
Thank you. I also have no opinion, nor should I render one on colors, similar to Bruce there, and so I'm going to go with what has been suggested. And like Bruce, I share concerns about art on these and the process, and so I hope that as we advance this these agreements, that it be made clear that any desire to decorate them needs to be permitted by the city and maybe gone through the Planning Commission as if it were public art, or excuse me, not the Planning Commission, but the Arts Commission. And because just imagine we're going to put these K-rails in, and then maybe they're going to paint, and maybe it's the Sistine Chapel where they're hanging upside down over their wall and painting them, or maybe they're out in the street, right? So either way, it's pretty unsafe. So the whole issue of decorating, they'd need to work with the traffic engineering department to get it, block the lane. I don't know. So the more I talk about it, the less likely I think I am to want any art if it's going to be a major ordeal. For now, I think that we roll out a standard color and then have them bring back any ideas that they might have for decorating of it. So that's how I'd like to see it. I don't know if you need a motion for that or if direction's enough. Is there any objection to giving that direction from the council? Okay.
That's good, thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion for sandstone, and I can second that, I guess?
I think it was seconded.
And, it's already been done? And one last comment, I think that part of the reason it's come to us without going through the Arts Commission is because there's a program that we're trying to get in place and get these barricades in place. So I appreciate the direct route. And no, did we need to approve this? Probably not, but I think that this is a high-profile issue that some people disagree with, so I appreciate the opportunity. We're ready to vote.
So just to be clear, the motion was the selection of sandstone, and did you want the direction that you talked about included in that motion?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with Hinsey absent.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we're on to section 11, informational items. We're going to get an update on Senate Bill 1383 and the organics recycling programs. Eric Steenblock and company. Holy cow, you bring a team with you, Eric. Where's Mr. South? I thought I saw him. Elmer and he sit back there and just Kibitz, yes. The Peanut Gallery. Peanuts are organic, don't forget that.
Yes, we did assemble the A-team for this presentation, so we appreciate you having us here tonight. So we're going to provide an overview of our organic waste diversion and recycling program implementation as required by Senate Bill 1383. So SB 1383, it's an organics law that went into effect in 2022, requiring broad organic waste diversion programs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from landfills. So on the slide, you're sort of seeing a graphics that's depicting the problem that's being addressed, sort of the problem statement. You've got this large volume of waste material or of organic material that's being deposited into the landfill. You've got Californians throwing more than 6 million tons of food waste a year, and you've got 1 in 5 Californians that are food insecure. So collectively, this is creating this challenge that SB 1383 is trying to address. Through a variety of approaches toward these challenges, the intent of our presentation tonight is to really just sort of share a little bit about how we've built the programming to address these requirements. To help in that, we've assembled this A-team. I'll go down the line. I'm going to start down here. So Jim Ambroso from EDCO, our city's franchise waste hauler, is here. EDCO obviously does a big lift on this program, from our collection and processing, our reporting requirements, and data collection. We've got Malik Asen from the Solana Center for Environmental Innovations, or Innovation. They've been providing professional services in the space of edible food recovery, which we'll talk about a little bit more. And then in order to accomplish all that's being asked of the city under SB 1383, we have brought on a dedicated waste reduction and recycling program administrators who I'll introduce to you tonight. This is Paul Meckler, works in our Public Works Department in our Environmental Services group and has taken over this program. He's been in place since January of this year. I'm going to turn it over to him here in a second, let him sort of talk about his vision of the program, how it connects into our climate action programming, and then he'll also kind of close it out with sort of his vision for where we'll take this programming into the future. So with that, I'll hand it over to Paul.
Thank you, Eric. So as Eric mentioned, I think it's important to put this bill into context of our climate action plan. It's a climate action bill, greenhouse gas reduction. So the way we measure that through the cap is through a reduction in our per capita disposal rate. So this is based on actual tonnage reported by our haulers. So it is a real number. So as you divert materials from the landfill, you expect to see an in-kind reduction in the per capita disposal rate. So that top yellow number comes from AB 939. That's a 50% diversion target that's been in effect since maybe 1990, long time. We've been meeting that for quite some time. The 2020 cap target is outlined there in orange, and that's equivalent to a 65% diversion rate per person per day. And so we have seen some good news on that. After kind of hovering around 5.6, 5.7 per day, we did see a reduction in that in 2023. So it looks like some of the measures are starting to take hold here, which is good news. But we obviously have this 2030 cap target of this is 3 pounds per person a day, which is equivalent to an 80% diversion rate. So the question becomes, how do we get there, right? So through SB 1383, the primary goal is increasing participation in organics. I would say diversion. I have recycling here, but diversion because there's multiple avenues beyond just recycling. So sort of overall program principles, the way we see ourselves getting there is through implementing these key foundational steps, and that's really checking all of the SB 1383 boxes that we must check to comply with the law. But a big part of that is getting the infrastructure in place. So that's EDCO placing the bins, that's doing the initial education and outreach to folks so that they know what this green bin is and how to use it. And we'd like to expand that reach across all of the generators. We have multiple sectors, commercial, residential, multifamily. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but we would like to tailor our outreach and our efforts to those specific generators. That's where this gathering data to inform the future direction of our implementation comes, because we have learned some lessons from some of the data that we have gathered to this point, and so we want to use that to inform how we manage these different components and different generators. And then 2024 is the year that every component of SB 1383 becomes enforceable. So we list that here because that's definitely going to be a tool in our toolbox going forward. So before we get into more detail about any of that, I just want to kind of give an overview. This is essentially a bit of a crosswalk of 1383 provisions and how the city's met those provisions to date. So 2021, organics collection rate was approved. Shortly thereafter, we had carts at curbs. Residential collection services began. Towards the end of the year, we had the solid waste ordinance adoption, which is our enforceable mechanism for all of the SB 1383 provisions. 2022, we began the commercial enrollment collection, expanded the outreach efforts again to really just try to hammer that point home of this is your green bin, this is what organics recycling is, this is how you use it. The edible food recovery program began in earnest during that time as well. That's a big component of SB 1383 in our program that we'll get into a little bit more detail in this presentation. And then 2023, we made the great decision of approving a waste reduction and recycling program administrator. Without which I wouldn't be here speaking to you all tonight. And then we began the edible food generator inspections. Again, that's under that edible food recovery umbrella. And then we established the implementation record. SB 1383 is a pretty record-keeping heavy and intensive piece of legislation, so it's a really important component of our program. And it's also a good segue to pass this over to Jim Ambroso with EDCO, who have built this implementation record out for us, and he's going to talk about other ways that they're helping us implement this program.
I have to agree that the addition of the coordinator here was a great idea. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the program and to kind of address some of the things that have happened over the last several years since we all got involved. And I also want to personally thank each of the council members here tonight for taking time to come visit our recycling facilities and to see the anaerobic digester and get right in there and help understand what a key piece of infrastructure that is. And frankly, couldn't really move forward with this program to roll out a successful organics recycling program without it. Family-owned and operated EDCO was anticipating this long ago. Mr. South, you pointed out here, and the owners worked on that and made sure that we had that ready to go when the law came into effect. So a key part of that infrastructure is there. And then, as has already been mentioned, in 2021, 2022, 2023, the last 3 years, we rolled this out to all of the residents and the businesses in the community. Very extensive rollout effort, started with a lot of outreach and education, just bringing the concept to our folks. And it was a big deal. Many of our residents were concerned that we were leaving the curbside and coming in the kitchen to tell them how to cook food, how to recycle. And we were, in effect. And that was a difficult challenge for them, not only them, but the business community as well. Restaurants, you can well imagine, are busy places. Their kitchens are challenging to work in and around. And so it was a difficult time. One of our field reps is here, Logan Betts, spent a lot of time visiting many of the businesses and multifamily apartment complexes and condominium complexes to help them figure out how best to do this, because it did require some shifts and changes in their service, perhaps, their containers. But ultimately, they just needed to know what the law required, what was required of them. And I can say that we've successfully rolled this out to all of the residents. 100% of the residents have containers and service. And can I say it? All but one commercial business has it too. So frankly, that's amazing for a community to be able to accomplish that. So I'm excited that Encinitas has embraced this as well as it has across the board through all the customers. We'll go to the next slide. As has already been mentioned, 1383 is, frankly, the most prescriptive piece of legislation I've ever seen. It was put forward to take this matter seriously. The legislature wanted to make sure that we recycle organics. We get them out of the landfill. That was really the push. We've got to reduce greenhouse gases. and get organics out of landfill is a key component of that. And so the law was very specific about who has to do it, how they're going to do it, what color the containers are going to be, what size are they going to be, how you're going to monitor it, how you're going to enforce it, how you're going to report it. Very extensive, very prescriptive. Included in that was a requirement for local government to participate and to help make this happen through procurement process, purchasing products to help create demand for organic recycling. How does it work? Simply this: we collect organic food waste, green waste, all the organic materials, we process it through the digester, we create products. Those products include mulch, compost, and renewable natural gas. All of those are great materials that can be reused. The mulch and compost can go back on agricultural fields, so we close the loop by growing it, consume it, use it, and put it right back out there again after we digest it. Renewable natural gas is something that we burn in our trucks, and so we're able to basically displace diesel and burn a clean burning fuel. And so the state of California, through CalRecycle, established a goal for each community based on population. And Encinitas has a goal of 4,983 tons that you have to basically procure. What in the world does that mean? It's a very long formula. It's complicated. We won't go into the details of that. But what it's basically saying is that there's a measurement method that they're going to use to measure how well you can procure, or how much procurement you actually have to do. One good example or analogy would be if we were to take 4,983 tons of compost and spread it around the community every year, we would comply. Wonderful. Anybody know how much 4,983 tons of compost is? It's a lot of stuff. And so there's other ways to get there, and thankfully there is. And fortunately, renewable natural gas contributes greatly to hitting that. And in that formula, you can calculate how much gas is actually burned in our trucks in Encinitas, and it helps us get to this goal. The goals were set up by 2025 to hit the full 100% of this procurement. And there's a sliding scale getting us there. Happy to report that in 2023, we exceeded the goal of 30%. We're marching on to 65% now. And we're going to come probably a little short on that unless we really do a lot of compost and mulch, put it out there. But there's programs in place. We're working on how to get more of that out into our parks and recreation activities, public works activities, street activities, even HOAs. Anyone who's got a big project that they need mulch, compost for, we're offering it for free, and we can help get this stuff out there and take credit for it to hit the goal. But as you see, just in last year, 99% of this was achieved through our renewable natural gas that we burn in our trucks. That is growing as we continue to add more organic waste to the digester. We're going to produce more gas. So we've just got to grow the programs. We'll produce more gas. We'll all help get that target achieved. On the next slide. Another part of this 1383 mandate is that we have extensive record keeping and reporting that's going on. We knew this was going to be an enormous task, and so EDCO developed its own database, a platform that meets the requirements completely. We actually worked with CalRecycle to develop the components of it so that we knew that once we push the button, offer it to our communities, it meets the mandate, and it does. And it also allows us to load everything into one central location where all of the information collected from the city, from our folks, from the Solana Center can all go to one place and compiled in reports that when we push the button, it goes to CalRecycle, and we meet the mandates that are required there. So it's a really helpful tool to make sure that compliance is achieved for each of our communities. Enforcement, it's been talked about a little bit. It started January 1, 2024. Frankly, enforcement isn't something that we want to see used. We much prefer that folks participate, that they get the program, they use it, and compliance is achieved by persuading them, educating them, and helping them to have the right tools to do the job. But because there's a law there that's required to be enforced, the state of California will come to Encinitas and we'll review our records. If we're not complying here, they can do enforcement against the city. Don't expect that to happen because, frankly, we're achieving great results already. But starting January 1, there has been some letters sent out, we call them courtesy notices, to put some customers on notice that they have not complied and they need to, that if they don't, there will be some enforcement potentially in the future.
And as I said earlier, there's only one customer right now that hasn't complied yet. So I'm confident that we'll achieve and get that done. The ongoing monitoring program that's taking place is something that is just that. It's ongoing. We have cameras on top of our trucks that we randomly select customers to look at what is in their containers. It's a requirement under the law. And we have done 770 containers randomly chosen in a year. 159 of those received postcards. So what's that mean? When we look at the material, the picture on the bottom there shows the kind of picture we get. And in it, we can identify if there's contamination, something that shouldn't be in there. For example, we look at trash cans, look at recycling cans, we look at the organics cans. A trash can would be a good example. Once we tip it, there should be trash in there. Well, if there's cardboard in there, if there's recyclables in there, if there's green waste in there, it shouldn't be. It should be in the other containers. And so that would trigger a notice to that customer. We send it to their residents. It's a very kind, friendly notice, basically saying that we found this material. The picture's there. And we can show them what's actually been put in the wrong container, and we encourage them how to do it right and where they can get more information. So it's a good program. Again, it's everybody's in, so y'all may get one of those. I hope not. But everybody is subject to the review, and it'll help. I think part of the education, part of helping achieve compliance, and really what we want has been said already is participation. We really want folks to participate and be part of the program. And I think that's end of my slides, right? Yep. So I'm going to turn it. Oh no, we have one more. Sorry, I got one more to talk about. What's happening? The impacts and what have we achieved so far? You saw on the earlier slide with respect to the cap that there's been some movement to comply with that. And we're seeing, as we look at some of the data, some significant movement. We're encouraged by it greatly. The left chart shows the commercial organics that's been diverted. The commercial businesses took them a while to get going, but once we rolled it out to them, yes, they're participating. They're starting to separate their organic waste in the restaurants and the businesses, and you can see a very significant increase in the tonnages there. It's moved the needle on the overall diversion. Overall diversion is what we're diverting away from the landfill. And these numbers can change a little bit depending when you measure them. But we've seen a significant increase in overall diversion. And then it comes down to really those tons that we're diverting. How many tons are we moving? I thought it was interesting to show this slide that what happened in 2021 was kind of alarming to everyone. We saw this number go down significantly. Well, what happened? The businesses shut down and folks were home. And so we weren't recycling as much from a business, from a manufacturing facility, or even we weren't going out to restaurants nearly as much. And so we saw a significant drop in the diversion there. But since then, have had a big recovery in those numbers. And I will tell you that the 2024 numbers are growing significantly as well. Just in organics diversion last month, or it was actually June, I saw the number climb over 40%. So we're going to continue to see, I think, improvement throughout this year. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Amalika to talk about edible food recovery.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, City Council. I'd like to start off by thanking Eric and Paul for giving me this opportunity to come talk to you about the wonderful edible food recovery program that's in place here at Encinitas. Let me start off by just sharing with City Council what the requirement is for edible food recovery, and that is 20% of surplus edible food needs to be increased and diverted by 2025. So it's a statewide target. It's not specific to each city. As Jim shared, it's a very prescriptive law. So what's required of the city is to put in place the program requirements, and that's all it needs to do. So what's this picture? This picture paints the story of who are the businesses that do need to comply for edible food recovery. It's broken down into Tier 1 and Tier 2 businesses. And I don't know if you can see from there, but there are little thresholds and size requirements that are listed next to some of the pictures here. And that's because the law tries to not impact all the businesses. They're trying to not be too burdensome. And it identifies just the businesses that do need to comply. Tier 1 needed to comply by 2022. And these are basically businesses that have large volumes and they have shelf-stable food. And Tier 2 need to comply by 2024, and they are mostly dealing with prepared food, so it's like restaurants and hotels, health facilities. And like you can see, a restaurant, you need to be above 5,000 square feet to 250 seats. So again, this law is really going after the big generators. As Eric shared in the kickoff slide, 1 in 5 in California are food insecure, while in San Diego, the number is 1 in 4. So there's a lot of people here who don't have food, and let's save this surplus edible food and get it to them instead of to the landfill. The city has about 42 businesses, Tier 1 and Tier 2, in 22 and 23, and this year we actually redid the count. We found a couple of new additions, mostly coming from events, and that takes the number up to 52. Next slide. Thanks, Eric. So the city has worked really extensively from 22. First, it was under the RISWA contract, where there was a ton of resources that were developed, and this was basically to help the businesses be compliant. And the city offered a ton of opportunities for businesses basically to get the required education to be compliant. They offered commercial webinars, on-site assessments, businesses could call in, we did Zoom calls, we basically did whatever was needed. So the numbers are that 100% of the businesses were educated. And these businesses were actually educated through a variety of ways, multiple touches. In addition to that, we conducted 100% of the Tier 1 inspections, and that totals to about 16, and that's because Tier 1 businesses needed to start complying by 2022. We also provided 14 Tier 2 technical consultations. Tier 2 businesses do not need to comply till this year, 2024. So the city really made sure that all these businesses were helped in whatever way they were willing to accept the help. The pounds of food donated grew from 2022 to 2023 at about 18%. These numbers are not any theoretical estimates. These are actually reported numbers. So these are the numbers directly from the businesses. And it's mostly Tier 1 businesses because those were the only ones who needed to comply. And I'm happy to share that there's room for this to grow further because Tier 2 businesses are just coming online. And so as they start putting programs in place, we will actually see more food, and it'll be a lot of prepared food as well. So next slide, thank you. The other half of the equation is the food recovery organizations. Encinitas is very lucky and blessed, actually, to have these two great organizations. You have the Community Resource Center, which the gentleman earlier had talked about as well. And then you also have St. Andrews. Between these two organizations, they're rescuing from over 20 grocery stores, 13 of which are here in Encinitas, and 7 actually are from neighboring cities. So these organizations are not just helping Encinitas, but also helping Solana Beach and the neighboring cities. What's really wonderful is that because they have such robust programs, they enable all the food that was collected to stay right here and help your residents. Not a lot of the other cities actually have this. The food lands up leaving their city. But in your case, the food stays right here. We also have Produce Good. They're a wonderful gleaning organization. I think probably you guys are familiar with them. And they will actually, their numbers will start contributing to the city's surplus capacity because they're moving their operations from Oceanside to Encinitas. And then I'd like to maybe just end by stating that we recently completed a capacity planning exercise for the city. And what was proven in that exercise is that the city has all the required food recovery capacity it needs to recover from the food that's being generated by the Tier 1 and Tier 2 generators. So you're in great shape, you're meeting all the requirements, and we're thrilled to be supporting you. Turn it to Paul.
Thank you, Malika. So I just want to close it by kind of talking about the next steps and the directions we see this going. So I've kind of organized it by these 3 sort of tiers and generators. So on the residential side, I think that we'd like to continue some of our successful existing partnerships that we've had in the past. That's the outreach, that's the Waste-Free SD database, that's the Solana Center, assisting our residents with specific questions, just a general resource for anyone that wants to up their zero waste game and increase their organics participation. But we also want to expand that. I mean, obviously we've expanded it. We have additional in-house resources now, but we want to expand and explore additional avenues and topics, social media campaigns, additional mailers with your EDCO bill, online blogs. We're even looking at a recycling app where you can scan a product when you're in the store and determine if it's recyclable or not, and also do it when you're at the disposal point. So just providing a lot of more opportunities and avenues for folks to participate. We talked about procurement. So again, I want to grow that 1% mulch procurement higher than that. Every time we have the shred event here at City Hall, we get tremendous participation from residents. There's clearly an interest there. How can we expand that? Do we have a site where we can have a self-loading station or it's some way that, or more frequent distribution events, some way that we can increase that, right? Because I think that really helps drive home, as Jim said, that closed circle that we have. It's a really wonderful, this green bin organics loop is really cool, and I think it helps drive that home when you can actually come and use the products at your own home. On the commercial side, we're really looking at front of house organics participation. So again, we have near full enrollment in the back of the house. So it's one thing to have the infrastructure in place. It's another thing to use it. So we're looking at how can we assist our businesses on that front. So, you have a nice picture here of a 3-bin station. Really we'd want that green bin to take the place of the black bin, or, either swap it or just frankly take the place of it entirely. So can we develop tools where you're switching to 100% compostable serviceware, and then all of a sudden it's just a green bin and a blue bin, and that's that, and you're like one step from zero waste, right? So we're exploring that and just trying to find the business consultations, find the pain points, figure out how we can make this doable for our businesses, and then community wide, I think it's really about setting the tone for organics recycling and zero waste. So that's continuing successful partnerships with our school districts, our farmers markets. We have a picture here of Produce Good doing edible food recovery on fresh produce that's then going to those in need. And I think that's a real nice thing. Again, a tone setter that folks see, they get educated on the program, and there's a lot of value there. And then just kind of fun one-off zero waste events that'll again help raise that sort of profile of the program in the minds of our residents and our visitors. And then I do want to open it up for questions, but I wanted to leave with this slide because it's a really nice demonstration from BCK Programs, who works in our school districts, from Encinitas Union School District, pre and post organics, curbside recycling, and education programs. So you look on the left here, 2018 through early 2020, and you only had a 41% diversion rate, and you fast forward to 22-24, we're all of a sudden at 92%, and that's driven largely by organics recycling and food recovery. So I like to think if our kids can do it, we can too. So it's out there, it's attainable. We just need to take the steps.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate the presentation. It's fairly encouraging. I have always appreciated the long-term relationship that the City of Encinitas has with EDCO as our solid waste hauler and partner in dealing with issues related to the disposal of any variety of waste. I also appreciate your activism and being involved in our Chamber of Commerce. I think that's one of the hallmarks of EDCO is engagement in the community, and I very much appreciate that, as I suspect my colleagues do as well. This has been an interesting rollout. And it works in our house. We're getting her done. My wife became a master composter through Salonis Center, and so we've ended up in fights over whether I should throw the green waste of a particular type in the green bin or whether it should go into her compost. And she has given up bones and paper plates and napkins so far. And so that's what we're putting in the green waste, as well as our yard clippings. So it's good to see it all getting done. Thank you for your efforts. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, a couple notes, and one is that, Eric, you said you brought the dream team here, and I want to really focus on that, and that I just love this group. I love what you're doing. Thank you for your leadership, Eric. Nice to meet you, Paul. EDCO and Solana Center, you're just wonderful partners, and you have been for a long time. I talk about what we're doing here in Encinitas to other people, other leaders in other communities, and they're just like, how do you do that? You know, it's like, wow, I don't know. We've got amazing partners. I'm just so thrilled. So thank you for the presentation. I've been anxious to learn. How are we doing? One thing I do want to ask you, if you could help me understand, is how can we better improve what we do in our city facilities, in our parks and in our community center? And I want to look at what should we know about what we can do better, what we as a city can do better?
Yeah, sure. So I can take that one. So we have, within the first few months of this year, began to roll out additional signage, additional three-stream stations. If you go to the break room on the, would it be the north side of City Hall, we have a new three-stream station with additional signage. We're actually having a lunch and learn tomorrow for staff to help expand that outreach. And just it's like you have that first rollout, right, of green bin, but it's not a one-time shot. It's just you need to keep the drumbeat, right? We've worked at, I think there wasn't capacity at the Encinitas Library previously. We just worked and conducted a training with their staff last month, where we installed bins at the community center in the common, the big, I don't know the name of the room, but it's the big mess hall, where we have our our anniversary events, Pam. Yeah, so we are taking steps in-house, certainly at our city facilities. As far as parks go, we're looking at updating the special event guidance as well, both for city events and special events, so that folks will have the guidelines, to if you are serving food, a green bin will be required in addition to the blue and the black. We're looking at piloting additional special event bins that might be the ones we currently have a loan program, but they don't necessarily hope. We're looking at additional options in that space. So yeah, there's a lot of avenues. That's definitely on our radar, and I think that it's just one step at a time.
I appreciate that. I do want to just voice my interest in us moving in that direction. I know as far as parks, it's my opinion, as far as parks, people bring their own food for just their family activities. So it might not always be associated with a city event or MOU we have with another entity for an event. It's just my impression, you're the professionals, you know this better, but that parks are a place, and this might be true for other city facilities, where people bring their own food, and so to have that option. But they definitely bring things that need to be recycled, like cans. It's something that would be beneficial to show as a city that we're providing the options for their waste at our parks. I think it's a really visible opportunity. And I just had one more question. You talked about residential, and you seem to be presenting it as very, very well moving forward. Are we having any challenges with either multifamily or condos with organics collection? And I'm speaking from some personal experience of people who I know live in those kinds of facilities.
Yeah. Well, multifamily condos, apartments have always been the biggest challenge when rolling out recycling programs. We experienced it with our blue recycling, and certainly now with the green recycling too. The challenge is that we have a lot of folks moving in, moving out. The space is difficult to provide containers in because the parking is so limited. And often what the property managers will do is make us, they don't have room in their enclosures typically, so the extra container, organics container, has to be put somewhere else, and often in the corner of a parking lot. And we've are circling back with all of them now. We rolled out a container. They all have one at least, but we're circling back now, and part of Logan's responsibilities is to meet with them and to see how we can expand that, because it has to reach the broader population there. We have to get the message to them. We have to make it visible. We kind of coin these three things. It has to be educational, demonstrational, and then it has to be easy. Otherwise, folks aren't going to do it. And so we're trying to tackle those items to make it better for them.
Yeah, thanks for that. I wonder if maybe we should have different standards for enclosures if that's an issue. You know, there may be ways the city can be helpful. Thank you.
Councilmember Raylers.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, could we bring back the Planning Commission chair and add one more thing to the work plan, which is to look at multifamily trash enclosure requirements as the city now has them set. Let's see, and I'm reminded going back almost 20 years ago when Maggie Houlihan was up here and she had the city bring in little metal garbage cans because that's all she wanted to go to the landfill. And she'd be so proud now to see what's happening and everything being done here by this collective and by the residents. And so thank you. And I too have loved Edco for years and Solana Center. The only thing I do miss the old name Mash Burn. When I tell people that my garbage company was named Mash Burn, I thought, wow, that's, I just missed that name. I'm sorry. I did have one question. Going back, can you go back to slide 3? And I'm trying to understand, I think that was the pounds per household. The engineer's going to get into the data. I see 2020 down, and maybe, I don't know if you know where that data came from, but we're down from where we were, right? I noticed in the 2018, you were showing a huge increase. Was that only commercial in the diversion? Because I don't see the same kind of drop here, and I'm trying to understand what am I looking at here? This is greenhouse gases, but I assume it correlates to disposal rate, pounds per person per day.
Well, I think this slide is looking at the disposal component of it, how much waste we're disposing on a per capita basis. So taking the total tons, pounds, translated of waste that's disposed of by the population, and you come up with a factor. The other charts we're looking at what we're diverting. So it was focusing more on the recycled material and how many tons, what percentage of it compared to the disposal that we were achieving. So they're kind of looking at it from two different angles.
Yeah.
But we're seeing the similar result because there is a correlation here, of course. If we're going to divert more tons, you're going to see disposal go down. That's what we want to achieve.
And where I see go from 33% diversion to 38%, I don't see the equivalent drop here. And I'm curious, one of the things I'm curious about, you seem to be measuring quite a bit. I love the idea of the cameras checking. Do you also weigh what the different bins are from each house? In other words, is there a way to tell how many houses are complying dutifully and how many are kind of half complying? In other words, do you have, can you tell how many people comply?
Yeah. That's a great question, and no, we don't have that data.
Okay.
We don't weigh each home. All we have today is the collective totals for the community. We can break it down by route, and we can break it down by maybe certain communities and kind of get an idea that way. But we don't have anything that singular.
Yeah, because I think like most of the council has said up here, we're down to this huge garbage can with one little bag in the bottom each week and a bunch of dog poop maybe. That's about it. And it's incredible. We're headed towards the small cans. But I'm curious, but when I walk around, go for walks and whatnot, I see other garbage cans that are quite full. And I don't look in them, so I'm not doing that. But I have to suspect some households are mostly not complying, if you will, or they're half-heartedly complying, and that seems to be the problem. And to me, that would explain why we haven't seen the deep drop. And to me, I would think would be the place to get from that 40% up to the 65%. It's trying to get more people and companies, commercial, but more people, residents, diverting substantial amounts of their waste. So
we agree.
Almost sounds like he's advocating for a scale on your arm that you tip with so that we could charge in a more effective way to incentivize a reduction.
Well, I wasn't quite going
but
that far.
I wouldn't put those words in his mouth. No, yeah right. Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Well, since we're not incentivizing, there is a public education element of it as well. And I liked what you had in the slides. If you could go back to your very last slide, I think there's the, what to do part of education. I think we've done some of that. We can continue to do it. But this last slide, I'm sorry, the one of the, yep, that one, where it shows what the schools did. I mean, that is a lot about why it matters, right? You've really flipped it from that large red on the left to mostly green on the right. And I think if we can just continue to do that, it takes a lot of education to affect that kind of change. And so how do we keep getting the information out? And, why should people care about it? So it's one thing to say you have to do it and to inspect. It's another to really get them their hearts and minds engaged. So appreciate your efforts there. And thanks to the group for being here and all the work you're doing.
And I think that the key to success is the fact that these slides are showing the effect at EUSD, which is our young people. And the old farts that are serving up here are going to, this generation, I think, as we evolve, the younger people are responsible for saving the world. I was at an event at Moonlight Beach that was organized by Surfrider as part of their monthly cleanup at the beach. And unfortunately, the volume of plastics that they pick up is really quite bad. It reminds me a lot of The Graduate when the gentleman said there's a great future in plastics in '67. I don't think that they really understood what we were getting into. And the microplastics that are polluting our environment, showing up in food, fish, placentas, it's really just gotten to be a big bummer. So my question to you when it comes to recycling plastics, is there a market for it anymore? Is there really, what percentage of plastics do you think we're actually recycling? I know we're on organic, so I'm technically probably not supposed to be asking about plastics, but as long as I got you here.
Happy to address that. Yeah, the plastics recycling is still very viable. When we collect it, folks put it in their blue containers. We bring it in, we process it, and we can recycle it. And the vast, vast majority of what we bring into that facility gets recycled. If you recall from the tours, there's very little going out. We create all those bales, and we ship them off to markets for creating new products. So plastics recycling works. The problem is what doesn't get in that blue container. Right. And that's what's sitting in the beach, it's sitting in the water, it's left, unfortunately, in many places, and bad things happen once it's there. So what we have to do is really advocate for social responsibility, that folks, what they bring in, they bring out, they put it in the right recycling container, and we can get it recycled and reused, perhaps. But it's heartbreaking to see what you saw there, for sure.
The event included Senator Blakespear and a discussion about her advocacy for a ban on plastic bags completely. I know the plastics industry was pretty, they wanted to sell plastic, so they actually thickened the bag, and so the idea of this bill would be to make that illegal. So my hope is that she's successful. Can you go to that slide 3 again one more time before we go? The goal for 2030 seems like quite a reach. And so I think we're going to count on you all to bring us some recommendations for how we're going to knock that out by 2030. It's not that far away, and that's a lot of movement there. So appreciate your efforts, and I don't see any more requests to speak. So I thank you all for being here. Thank Mr. South and Elmer back there for the work that you guys do, and we'll continue the relationship. Okay, moving on to the rest of the agenda, we jump to City Council member reports pursuant to AB 1234.
I have nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
I have nothing to report per the statute, but I did want to give an update that we did have our first Affordable Housing Task Force meeting last night. We had a good turnout of the members, one of them here in the audience. We had a lot of energy, a lot of questions about what we do today on affordable housing. The agenda slides and audio recording are going to be posted, so those will be publicly available. And next week, we're going to begin looking at possible sites, starting with city-owned, school-owned, or faith-based land. And then we'll also discuss ADU program. We had a lot of questions about ADUs, and I think it's probably good to give that overview and talk about what more we might be able to do to drive affordable ADUs, ADUs rented at affordable rates. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sandag is on break, so I have nothing to report either. City manager reports?
North County's hottest events are happening here in Encinitas. How do you know it's the end of summer? The final Moonlight Beach concert. So that is this Sunday, August 25th, with the headliner, the Beat Farmers, who are an American rock and roll band formed in San Diego in 1983. Fun fact, that's the year I graduated from high school. So if you didn't get a chance to see any of the concerts, don't miss this one. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. City attorney report?
I've not heard the name Beet Farmers in about 35 years.
Okay.
But other than that, nothing to report. Thank you.
All right. City clerk reports?
We are still accepting applications for the unscheduled vacancy on the Environmental Commission. That deadline is tomorrow at 5. And then yesterday I posted a notice of unscheduled vacancy on the Urban Forest Advisory Committee. So those are both available online.
Okay. Thank you. And tonight's meeting, I'd like to adjourn in honor of a gentleman named Dan Tota, longtime Encinitas resident who had some health issues that required that he rely on public transit. So he was a strong advocate for improved public transportation system. I saw him a lot at CTD and down at Sandag, the Transportation Committee. And he unfortunately succumbed to some of his ailments, and it was sad to see him go. I know that he had a lot of people that depended upon his advocacy, and he was the one that was always willing to come and speak out. He was blind and confined to a wheelchair, but always stepped up to speak, to advocate for public transit, especially paratransit. And so tonight, I'd like to adjourn this meeting in honor of Dan Tota.